Welcome back to the 10 Tabs Open podcast. This is your host, Alex Howell, and today we had on my good friend, Kyle Greenlee, on for episode 19. Kyle has a really unique and interesting story. He and I went to school together, K through 12, and then we both went off to separate colleges, and we had been good friends pretty much the entire time in school. Kind of hung out with different crowds, but we're always able to keep a conversation going, and he probably lived about 5 minutes from where I grew up. But Kyle ended up, and you'll hear this in the podcast, he ended up going and basically drove to North Dakota on a whim and started looking for jobs, spent about 2 weeks in his truck as he was trying to find one, but ended up finding a job as an inspector up there and just kind of continued to, work his way up through the ranks. And if you know anything about working up there, it is not the easiest thing in the world. It's hard work. It's rough. It's probably the last bastion of the Wild Wild West that we have up there. And for the most part, he was in Williston, but he traveled to I think he said Wyoming, Texas, Alabama, a bunch of different places, and saw some things. And he's just like all of us, our experiences in our life kind of shape who we are and what our belief system is, and he's no exception to that rule, just like all of us, listeners, myself alike, are the same way. You'll notice that some of the people that I've had on, for the most part, are center to center left. Kyle is definitely a center-right guy. We agree on a lot of stuff, and we disagree on some stuff, but one thing that I want you to listen to throughout this entire conversation is, and I say this a lot on this podcast, but I don't think that people who believe that they are, highly conservative, people who think that they're far liberal, are really that different. And again, your experience shapes what you believe. So you'll hear some things on here that maybe in the past on some of the other podcasts are a little bit different. Today, you're going to hear some stuff, though, from a guy who has put in the work. He's put in the effort. Since he was a young man, he has, seen a lot of things. And it's some of the things that we talk about, and you'll kind of hear us get into it a bit, have been pretty rough on the soul. But it's shaped him. He's a great man and a great person, and family is absolutely and without question number one for him as well. So I was really happy to have Kyle on the podcast. I want to thank him so much for coming on. He was a fantastic guest for episode 19, and we're going to have episode 20 here in the next couple of days as well. If you want to, go onto my website at alexanderhowell.com, or if you'd like to look at real estate in Kansas City, go to dreamhomekc.com. That's where I have everything listed, or if you need to contact me, just send me an email to alexander@alexanderhowell.com. And this is the 10 Tabs Open podcast, episode 19 with Kyle Greenlee. Thanks. All right, let's go ahead and test it.
Test 1 2 3 1 2 3.
There you go. All right, we're on, man. Kyle Greenlee, what is going on? You're back down south.
Back down south, man. Yeah, it's been a long 8 years up around the North Dakota Canadian border.
Mm-hmm.
Spent a little bit of time in Wyoming and a little bit of time in Texas, a little bit of time in Alabama, a little bit of time everywhere. So
yeah,
it's been a lot of fun, but I'm glad to be here with you tonight.
Awesome, man. So you have to tell me about Williston. This is the weirdest town in America. So I'll do this in the introduction too, but just as kind of a secondary thing so that we can kind of set this up. And I want you to give the introduction about everything you've done and where you've been, because I know it's a long story. We'll go through this entire time. But you have a really interesting story because you've been in the northern oil fields and the Dakotas and that kind of thing. I mean, you've been an inspector. I think I see on Facebook constantly and then I passed this thing, and then I passed this thing.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, you've posted pictures of you and the Husky in winter weather, and the Husky looks far more comfortable than you do.
Yeah, it took some getting used to for me. And, I mean, yeah, it definitely takes some getting adjusted to. I remember my first couple years up there in North Dakota. Actually, my first year entirely, I just didn't know if I could do it. But
really?
You see that paycheck coming in, and you're like, I could do it a little bit longer. But no, I mean, in all reality, my dog means the world to me, and anyone who follows me on Facebook knows that. And,
Echo?
Yeah,
yep.
Echo dog. And yeah, he's been there with me through thick and thin, through some real ups and downs that even that line of work kind of caused, I would say. It's real nice to make that big money, but sometimes it comes at a big cost, bigger than I even realize sometimes. And so just always having him to fall back on, it really just made my day. They say dog's man's best friend, and he proves that true every single day.
That's awesome, man. What was the initial thing that you thought, I'm gonna go up north and make a shitload of money? But that's a real heavy trade-off.
It is, and I was thinking if you were going to ask this question on my drive over, and I was thinking of how I'd want to answer it. And honestly, it's a story I'm really proud to tell.
Yeah.
Of where I came from, because I went to high school. In high school, I was a really good student. I went to college, kind of partied a little too hard. Feel like I wasted a lot of my own potential.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just hit a point where I was just, as my old man says, I was just spinning my wheels. I wasn't getting anywhere.
Was this still in college or after?
Still in college, even.
Yeah.
And I was having too much fun instead of focusing on classes.
College can do that to you.
Yeah, it happens to a lot more people than you think.
Yeah, me.
And I don't know what happened. I think it was probably the loss of my grandparents that really kind of shook me up. I was always real close with them.
Yep.
And after that, I was just kind of looking for a way out. I was like, there's the big wide world, and all I've known is Missouri so far.
Yeah.
I was like, and a buddy of mine, Chris Pitts, actually told me, hey, there's a lot of oil field work going on up in North Dakota.
Yeah.
So, honestly, I wish I would have planned it out better in hindsight, because didn't have much money to my name at the time, and we just piled in a car that my own mother helped me buy. And, that takes a lot to say for a kid who's, 25, 26 years old.
Right.
It was 24, 25. Sometimes you lose track of those years. But I appreciate it. And, dude, I just drove up there with blind faith. It was when the oil field was booming.
So you didn't even have a job when you were driving?
No.
Oh, shit.
No. I kid you not, dude. In hindsight, I could have done it 10 times better.
Yeah.
Or more efficiently.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's what we had heard.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of people did. I wasn't the only one in that situation.
Well, and they're still going.
People and, when we first got up there, and it turns out jumping through all the red tape of getting hired on to some of these jobs, because these jobs, involving oil and gas, it's very complicated stuff.
Yeah.
They're not going to hire felons or anyone who could potentially risk, compromising a project.
Right.
And we kind of learned that the hard way. Honestly, I lived in my car for like 2 weeks, just job hunting, and in the middle of a North Dakota winter. And I think it would have been 2012, 2013, around there. And I remember sitting there one night, Alex, and I was sitting there. It was 45 below, and I had my car parked behind this garage, just trying to keep it out of the wind and keep it running, and trying to at the same time turn it off because I'm trying to watch my gas money.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have ever done it without a little bit of help from my family.
Yeah.
And from friends.
Yeah.
And luckily, it paid off. Wound up getting a phone call saying, "Hey, we'd like you to come in and interview for this position." And man, I took that and I just never looked back.
Yeah. What was the first position?
Working for Schlumberger.
Yeah.
Which is a huge oil field operation. But Schlumberger also has several segments underneath them.
Yep.
The segment we worked for specifically was Drillco, which we specialized in basically inspecting all sorts of downhole tools that we actually use to drill for oil with. Gotcha. So drill pipe, drill collars, subs, all that stuff has certain inspection needs, certain criteria it has to meet.
Yeah.
Because if we take something and put it 8,000 feet down in the ground, and then all of a sudden our connection fails, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
And, you've got toxic gas potentially coming back up to the surface.
Yeah, and people die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen people get hurt. I've seen people die.
Yeah.
And it sucks, and it changes you.
I'm sure. So was the phone call that you got that led you to inspection, was that a chance thing, or were you also somebody that you were looking at just anything you could get up there?
It was a chance thing. At that point, we were just looking for, any opportunity. I'm a hard worker. Give me a shot. You know, this is Boomtown, USA. As they still call it.
Yeah.
And there's literally a sign. if you go up to the Dairy Queen right at the four-way stop by Hy-Vee in Williston, to this day, it says, "Welcome to Boomtown, USA." Jeez. And I didn't realize what that meant at the time. Mm-hmm. But years later down the road, after falling in love with that community too, it really is a cool community of brotherhood. Mm-hmm. And it's just crazy. You got to realize that was a small, tiny town that just got blown up by the oil field.
Yeah, it was like the only town for I don't want to say hundreds of miles, but it was the only town for quite some time.
Well, yeah, and now they've expanded into Watford City, North Dakota,
gotcha.
Stanley, North Dakota. It's all branching out.
But Williston's the point.
Williston was kind of the center, the epicenter, if you want to call it that.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I kind of, even driving out of that town, I kind of looked at it in my rearview mirror kind of fondly. I was like, I think I'm gonna miss this.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a positive, though. I mean, when you look back and you can say, I mean, it sounds like, and I can hear it in your voice, like there's some tough memories up there, but it sounds like there are also some things you'll never forget and some positives.
Yeah, absolutely. It really kind of helped. It helped shape me as a person. Yeah. Into the man I've become today. Yeah. And when I first came up there, I was, you knew me from high school. I was a bit more of a softer around the edges kind of guy.
You were.
And, up there, man, I learned real quick. You better toughen up or you ain't going to last. Yeah,
well, I think you and I got into I didn't get into a Facebook argument with you. I think it was something that one of your buddies put on Facebook, and it was this really rough comment. And I sent you a private message and was like, dude, I remember you. What's up? And it's like, these are different men.
Well, yeah, it's true. It's true, and in hindsight, I don't regret a minute of it.
Yeah,
because I feel like I'm where I was supposed to be.
Right.
For as much as you can consider fate, I don't know how much I do, but I feel like it brought me to where I needed to be in my own life.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't regret a day of it. I've got countless memories from up there.
Yeah.
And, the beauty of it is I can make a phone call and still go back tomorrow if I wanted.
Absolutely.
You make those connections, and it's cool because you meet people from all over the world up there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could go through my phone contacts list and just say, hey, you got work in New York for me? Okay, I'm on my way.
Nice.
Hey, you got work in California for me? I'm on my way.
Yeah. Well, you said it's a brotherhood.
Yeah, and that's a nice thing to have. A luxury that maybe so many other people don't have.
Hey, real quick, I apologize. Because I shifted on you. That's my fault. Try to push that mic just that way a bit. And you can kind of shove that elbow arm, and that'll help. There you go.
Is that better?
Because, you're looking at me like it's my fault. I had to shift from over there because of the sunlight.
Okay.
But it was like over here. Okay. But no, yeah, I mean, I there's not right now, and so my buddy Corey that I was talking to you about earlier, one of the conversations that we had, we talk about Theodore Roosevelt a lot because it's a man and a president that we both appreciate.
And a beautiful national park up there. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. I want to go see it. Just because, honestly, just because of him. But we talk about him a lot, and Corey's made a comment, and if you want to go back, I think it's like episode 16 or something, we talk about this. But he said that if he listens to this podcast, he's going to be screaming through the speaker at me. But there was an article posted about America and the fact that we had reached the Pacific and there was really nothing else to conquer. And that idea that we were either I think it was exploring is the right word. So we were exploring the West. We were exploring everything. And the moment that we explore the Badlands, explore the West, and go up to Canada and Alaska and all that kind of stuff, America lost at that time what America was, because America was the final destination of exploration.
Yeah.
And when I hear you talk about your experience up there, that reminds me of that. Like, that was a brotherhood of individuals that knew that, life and limb was something that they were willing to forsake at times because they were wanting to do something nobody had ever done. So when I hear you talk about that, like that was the initial thought that I had, was just like, oh, it's the Badlands, it's Theodore Roosevelt, we're exploring, we're doing things that nobody has in a place where nobody really expected anything to ever happen. I mean, go back 20 years and hear people talk about North Dakota and like, fucking North Dakota. Nothing happens in North Dakota.
But no, it is definitely and I can't speak to it for the entire time the boom's been going on. Like I said, I think I got up there around 2013, and it was kind of on the tail leg of that initial boom. And then the way oil and gas works, there's an ebb and a flow, and it's so intrinsic with politics, which is something that always kind of weighs heavy on everybody's mind.
Yeah.
So I mean, suffice to say, you don't meet a lot of people that lean very far left working up there in that line of work.
I'm sure.
And I'm not saying that's fair. But usually it's,
well, people vote for their livelihood.
Yeah. People vote for their livelihood. That's a great way of saying it. And I mean, it's definitely a camaraderie type of, it's truly hard to explain because when you're out here, I mean, I spent the majority of my time up there doing pipeline, and pipeline, such an evil thing, is what half of the aisle would tell you, and I mean maybe even more. But to meet the guys that I worked with, you'd be surprised how many of us really actually care about the environment. We try to leave it in a better place. We try to do everything right. Like to us, this is, it is essential work. I mean, how are we heating this nice house right now?
Right.
With gas.
Natural gas, yeah.
Yeah, with natural gas. That doesn't just show up here.
No.
Like it has to be routed here.
Correct, and even if it was electric right now, it's still getting burned somewhere.
Yeah, it's getting burned somewhere. And I wish more people could realize that, is that, people in oil and gas, they're not all bad people. Like, I mean, honestly, we've had phenomenal conversations out in the pipeline talk. Like, you'd be surprised how many pipeline guys, we're actually big fans of solar. We just wish it was more feasible.
Right.
Like, but the reality is we're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
And we got to just keep going. I mean, these things don't build themselves.
Right.
And so to be demonized for it kind of sucks.
Yeah, and that's the most unfortunate part about the entire situation, is that the workers get demonized. I mean, so I try to watch every side until I can't stand it, just to hear the arguments. And so I do listen to a lot of Bill Maher. And there's one thing where he was talking about Hillary Clinton saying something about coal. And she made a comment like, we need to get off of coal. And then because the coal lobby went so much against her, she immediately backed down and was like, well, I mean, not everybody on coal. But when I heard him talk about it, his next line was like, well, what we need to do is say, fuck you to coal, and we're going to get rid of your jobs, and we're going to do this. And it's like, okay, well, this is where politics, and like you were saying, where politics and the people come in to play in a very significant way. Because do I eventually want to stop digging holes in the ground and finding shit? Of course.
Yeah.
We also dig holes and find shit for solar.
Yep.
We need to come to an agreement on what makes sense. Because right now, if you just said, fuck coal, fuck natural gas, and fuck oil, the entire planet's economy goes away. And there are some people that are like, yep, that's completely fine. It's like, yeah, until billions of people die.
Yeah.
So with me, I'm a huge fan of solar, just because I like the idea that if I throw panels on my roof, and I drive an electric car, and I have panels from here to my lake house and everything else, then I use the sun, and those panels last minimum 25 years, and I'm done. But if you said, can you get those installed tomorrow because we're going to cut off natural gas, oil, and coal, be like, no, that's not how this shit works. Because solar panels would go to $1 million a panel, because that's how supply and demand works.
Well, and even then, I mean, even the cost saved on solar, it has a payoff time. I mean, I don't know how many people I've talked to. Everyone's into this doing solar roofs now.
Yeah.
But they literally went out to my father's house and they said, well, you're already so efficient on your electric bill that you don't need a solar roof.
Right.
So like, it would cost you money in the long run. You'd be paying for something over 30 years that ain't going to save you any money.
Right.
And I'm sure lots of people fall for that, just, on the trend of being, energy efficient.
Yeah.
which is fine, but everybody's thing at the end of the day is their bottom dollar.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the biggest thing with solar panels is you really have to look at it as supply and demand is always going to work. So when does the demand become so high, or the supply becomes so high that the demand actually weighs everything out, where solar panels become cheap enough where everybody wants them? That, I think, is the eventual goal. The other thing that I think about with solar is, like, eventually you kind of become your own island too. Like, you become your own energy-centric place if you're in the right spot. If you're in the middle of the redwood forest, solar is not for you.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, you got to ask yourself the other question too. You're a red-blood American. Do you like to drive fast in your car?
And I think that's a really good question.
Can you do that in solar? I mean,
yes, but not for long.
You got to turn the AC down a little bit.
Exactly.
To pick up speed.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's little things like that. Like, guys that you and I grew up on,
Oh, yeah.
driving down old school road.
Yeah,
everyone was speeding, running
my
our
dream car is a
Camaros,
'69 Camaro with a big block V8.
Do we really want to sacrifice little things like that? I mean, I don't think it should be a sacrifice. I feel like it should still be a privilege that we can enjoy.
Yeah.
But the way the left tends to move on this stuff is we got to get rid of all of it. It's evil.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, you get rid of 69 Camaros, I don't want to live in this country anymore.
Well, I think, like, when you get to that point, the argument then becomes like, okay, so if you're in a situation where everything is so energy neutral, or so if everything's electric and everything's wind and everything's perfect and we're all living on that, which I do think will eventually happen, we'll figure out a way to become so efficient with energy that it won't be as necessary. On the opposite side, then oil becomes kind of it's a simple commodity that you either like or don't. If you want to drive your '69 Camaro around, fantastic. I mean, and I would, but I'd probably have to pay a premium for that gas to do that, the same way that I have to pay a premium right now for a Tesla, because the supply and demand judges that that's the way it is. I think the biggest thing we're going to have to, if we're going to talk about cars real quick, I think the biggest thing we're going to have to figure out is, what do you replace a gas tax with if you have only electric cars on the road? Because then your infrastructure gets fucked up.
Yeah.
And I think I want a Tesla because I like the idea of, like, solar, and plug in and done. But at the same time, where does the gas tax go?
But how are you getting the electric power
for me,
to charge that solar?
No, for me it'd be solar, battery, yeah.
Solar is a great solution. But and forgive me, I don't know a whole heck of a lot
about
good. Solar, to be honest. But
Kyle, I'm a fucking expert. I've been looking at this for 45 years.
Have you really?
I'm 32.
But no, I mean, it's the thing with solar. Like, I mean, I have my bug out bags that I keep and stuff. For when stuff hits the fan. I have solar radios and stuff, and they do charge a little bit just off their solar panels.
Yep.
But not very well.
Right.
And that's that's a downside we're at. Mm-hmm. Sure, technology can hopefully improve that, and I think any decent person wants us to improve that. If we can power our stuff off the sun, I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
But is it a reality?
Not right now.
I don't know so much right now. Because, I mean, we get back to primitive stuff, say worst case, and not to go all Alex Jones on you, but but I mean, a massive EMP wave wipes out all that.
Yeah.
What do you rely on? Coal, gas, oil, wood.
Yeah.
The things,
Yeah.
And so I personally feel like we need to be prepared for that, because I mean, honestly, just look around the world, the way geopolitics and global politics is heading. Like, it's not far off before something like that could potentially happen. I hope it doesn't.
Right. Well, and
I mean, it would decimate our grid. And if our grid relied on high-end technology that could be decimated with such a simple EMP burst, we're in trouble.
We would 100% be in trouble. I think that's where I feel like technology, if you allow it to continue, can be a positive, though, because I've got to imagine that there's a solution to that, too.
And I agree. I think there is. We haven't quite picked up on it yet.
But I do agree with you that you can't just, like I said about, solar and wind, if you just gave up on everything else and you screw over, not only the economy, but I don't think people realize how much that would really kill everything if you just, stopped digging for coal, stopped getting oil, stopped getting natural gas.
You got to realize all the byproducts. Like, all of our women are going to get so much uglier if we don't have petroleum-based products.
Oh, man. You're going to get me in so much fucking trouble.
I hate to go there.
I'm going to be in so much trouble.
By the way, this is Kyle's fault. Alex's, he did not. I'm just kidding. Alex, you can put the sign down now. I picked up your cue. But, I mean, it is seriously a thing to consider. There's so many byproducts of petroleum. And I feel like that goes underappreciated. Like, we could, I mean, you may as well close all these microphones down and throw your computer off the table.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
without petroleum byproducts, none of this stuff's here.
No, everything that you look at
so
in our
what's
basement
our solution to that?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. No, and I think that's a good point.
We don't have a real one yet.
Right.
I mean,
and I don't think that gets talked about enough.
It doesn't. It's all about the evil oil and gas, and that's why I'm glad you had me on here, because I just want to say I'm not a bad guy. Like, I have solar stuff. I'd love to have a solar or an electric car. I just like to go a little faster than most. Yeah. And you know what? I mean, I think the things are overpriced for all the average Americans right now.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of an electric car getting me to like 60 and then the V8 taking over. To me, that's perfect. Yeah. But again, if you had that, then you just have to balance what it is. But no, this is the reason I wanted to have you on, because I know you because you and I have been friends for a long time. I mean, we went to kindergarten together.
I know, man.
Like, we were in the same class.
We had a crush on the same girl.
Shh, you're going to get me in so much trouble with my wife. No, I'm kidding. No, she'd be like, whatever. But no, I mean, we went to kindergarten together. I knew you in high school, and we've been catching up. And this is my biggest positive about social media, is because you and I have lived very different lives, but I've been able to keep up with you. You've been able to keep up with me.
Absolutely.
And I think that there's a huge positive to that, because you see so many people. I mean, I was in theater. Most people in theater are on the left. That's what it is. Most people that are manual labor kind of individuals are on the right. That's where you fall. My theater friends fall on the left. But really, when I get people in front of the microphone, and when I actually get people one-on-one, whether or not they're willing to be recorded or not, I can find similarities between you and my most hardcore leftist friend.
Well, yeah, of course.
And you never hear that now.
Well, I mean, we're all human.
Yeah.
Like, I believe, I hope we all have the ability for compassion.
Yeah.
And that's something that I wish wasn't so lost nowadays.
Yeah.
And, you're probably right. Politics is probably a huge driving aspect of that.
Mm-hmm.
Me personally, I never try to make it that way.
Right.
Have I been guilty of making it that way? Probably.
Yeah.
Probably more times than I care to admit.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that's not something we can't change.
Exactly.
And have, an open conversation.
Yeah. Well, and we're also young.
Yeah, we are. And I mean, people get
we've
set in
lived
their
through
ways.
being stupid, and we will continue to be stupid. But I mean, it's one of those things that if you can find some piece of commonality between two people, all of a sudden it's like, oh, so you are human. Like, fuck yes, I've always been human.
No. Well, and I mean, we all have. It's just, there's always those. I don't know. It's just there's always going to be questions and issues where people are going to disagree.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's the beauty of living where we live. We're allowed to voice those disagreements. I mean,
no.
Not to shift it the other way, but I mean, look at what's going on in Hong Kong right now. Like,
no,
if you're disagreeing with the government, you're a marked man.
No, that's not shifting. That's that's a perfect shift.
I mean, but to me, that's a scary thing, because I feel like that's a direction we could potentially wind up. Like, people constantly forget our country has not been around that long.
No.
And I've always enjoyed history. I haven't been as much of a buff on it the past 7-8 years because I've been busy doing other stuff.
Yeah.
But like, it's something I always enjoyed, and it's something I know you always enjoyed in high school. And I mean, you were always brilliant on this stuff, especially even academically. Like, I'm sure we had several classes together where, and you and I always aligned.
Loved history, loved current events.
Yeah. And that's a great thing. But I mean, yeah, that's honestly something that keeps me up at night. I look around and I'm like, we haven't been here that long. This experiment has not gone on this long.
No.
And here we are. And, maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're not on the verge of anything.
No.
But man, it sure feels a lot worse than they showed us in the movies in the 70s and stuff,
To me, the ultimate, what's the right word here? The ultimate validation of the American experiment has come within the last 3 to 4 months, when for over 2 decades, you've seen American flags being burned and death to America and all that kind of stuff. And again, one thing that I disagreed with Trump the way he said it, but I didn't necessarily. And Obama actually said something very similar, in that America is not innocent in any way, shape, or form, but there's also a freedom here that is not available in many places in the world. The ultimate validation of the American experiment was when you saw American flags flying. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well,
so now they're not burning anymore; they're flying.
Well, I'll go a bit more pop culture on you.
Yeah.
Look to Boondock Saints. We must all fear evil men, but there's a greater evil which we must fear much more, and that is the indifference of good men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the point I feel like we're at.
Yep.
Good men. I mean, you could tie it back to feminism, that whole movement. I don't even want to go down that road. It gets us both in trouble. But I mean, you really could. We've demonized just sticking up for what's right, regardless of whether we agree on it or not. Everything's gotten so political. You used to be able to just stand up for what is right. That used to be a thing.
Yep.
And I don't feel like that's possible anymore, because what I think is right, you think is wrong. Not you personally.
No,
but
I
someone
understand.
else might.
No, I think that's the weirdest part about this. There are several things going on right now that are just very, very strange. And one of the things is the idea that anybody is attacking true feminism. I don't think there's a single person I've ever met in my life, and maybe I have. In certain areas where the people are like, I don't like women. It's like, well, okay, well, you're a terrible person. I've never met a person that's like, no.
Let me to tie it back into a little mini oil field story here. Just to prove this point. I'm a conservative guy. Like if I fall under the taboos that I'm supposed to be against feminism or women's rights or whatever they want to label it as, I literally had a great friend of mine. She's still one of my best friends today. Her name's Terry. She works with me up in North Dakota. She got into the field of pipelining, which honestly, that's a rough and tough group. There's not many women out there doing it. But she stepped into the ring, came in as a helper when I was shooting X-ray on pipeline. And you know what? A lot of the guys for the particular company, I won't name them, the particular company I was working for, they treated her like absolute shit. Did everything in their power to get her to quit. And it came to a head with me one day when I was getting ready to leave the shop, and she was sitting in a corner crying because some guy had cussed her out, said, bitch, do this, bitch, do that. I walked over and I hit that dude right upside his face. And
good.
I said, you're done. And I told her, I was like, you know what? I was like, you're going to come with me now.
Yep.
And you know what? We were best friends after that. She wound up going and picking up her level 2s.
Nice.
And now she's running her own truck. She's getting ready to go get her CWI and have all the certifications and everything that I earned. And it's not because of anything I did. That was all her. She's tougher than half the dudes I've ever met.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is give women the opportunity to do that. But she's also got she's got a lot of guts.
Yeah.
Most women would give up in that situation.
That's awesome. No, I mean it speaks to somebody like that where it's like, you're gonna stick it out. You're gonna be here throughout the worst part of it, and you shouldn't have to deal with this.
Well, and women shouldn't be afraid to do that.
No, they shouldn't at all.
I realize there's gonna be some obstacles against them, and that's not fair.
No,
I'm just saying there's lots of good men like you and myself that we're not trying to be part of that obstacle.
Yeah,
we'll step up and tell that guy to sit down.
Yeah,
and maybe we need more of that.
We definitely need more of that.
I mean, but we get demonized just because we have a penis.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, how can I help you when you're gonna demonize me without even knowing me?
Yeah, it's such a fucking balance. I mean, when you really look at the overall, it's like there are men that are. I mean, and as you just said, they're the men that are the worst of the worst, and they don't deserve shit, and they should be punched in the fucking mouth every day of the week and twice on
Sunday. That's what the world needs more of. Like men like you and I need to step up and just.
Yeah.
These guys that are the problem. Look, I'm not one to say violence is the answer, but you know what? Sometimes it is.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's true.
I'm not saying go shoot a bunch of people up, but
no, Jesus.
Stand your ground. Stand your ground. Stand up for what's right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like if people would do more of that, we might be in a better place.
Yeah. I think people are so afraid right now of what the counter is going to be. It's like, well, did you really have to stand up for her because she could have stood up for herself? Like, oh, give me a break. Like,
well, I mean, that's where I'm happy to look
we're
at someone.
We're a team. We're a team. I'm working with her. We are a team together. I'm helping her, and she would help me.
Well, that's where I honestly think we kind of all need to get back to our roots a little bit and just say, you know, like, I don't know how many times I've told people, like, hey, I'm from Raymore, Peculiar, Missouri. Like, never heard of that. And I was like, I know.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm proud to be from there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because we're raised differently in some of these smaller towns. And I you know, nothing against big cities, but I think you're raised to more stand up for the things that are right or the things you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, I mean, like you just nailed it, man. I mean, people are so worried about, well, what's going to be the response? You know, what am I going to get blamed for? We need to say screw all that and just start standing up for what is right. And I wish we could all have a definition on that. But
yeah, and unfortunately we never will, because everybody's going to have a different opinion on what is right and what is not. I think the positive that I see right now is that it does seem like the pendulum swung one way, and now it's starting to swing the other, where people are so sick and tired of hearing ridiculousness that it's getting a little quieter.
yeah.
And I think the really bad stuff is getting heard, which is perfect. You need to hear that. You need to understand it. But the stuff where, I mean, I think, I'm not even going to say that. The stuff that appears to be fake from the beginning, I'm thinking like the Jussie Smollett thing.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I literally called that the day that story broke.
I just remember looking.
I remember sitting there and going, like, this is fake.
I know, and I watched that story, and I just went, none of this makes sense. And then when people started yelling at Dave Chappelle about his bit on that, it's like, now we've reached peak ridiculousness.
Yeah.
It's like, we're up here now. Let's let that pendulum start swinging. Because if something would have happened like that and it was true, I'd want those people to be punished to the full extent of the law. But you watched that happen, and outside of a few famous voices, a lot of people just shut the fuck up. Like, okay.
Well, it's true. Everyone can hide behind a screen.
Yeah.
That's the difference in the past 20 years, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, I guess 30 years even. It's been that long.
That's 20. That's probably 20. I mean,
I remember logging on the AOL Instant Messenger and stuff way back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're only 32, so
yeah,
it would have been 12.
We both still look great.
I know, we do.
But
the beards
no,
going.
One thing I honestly found, I honestly thought it was pretty admirable, wouldn't be the word, but efficient, I suppose. Is like when we're out pipelining, like, guys have issues. Like, you're gonna have issues. Welders aren't gonna get along. Inspectors aren't gonna get along with welders. Yeah. Grinders, welders gonna have a fight. You're out here in the middle of nowhere in some farmer's field in the middle of North Dakota. There are no rules. Like, there are no police. You know what? Yeah. You know what
They're
usually
4
happen?
hours away.
There's company policies and stuff. Like, yeah, you can't fight. You know, company policy.
Yeah, but let's just be honest. Nobody's going to call somebody out. 10 feet to your right,
and you're off of company property.
Yeah.
And you know what? I can't tell you how many times I would watch guys go out there and resolve their issue. And like you said, not saying violence is the answer, but go out, throw a couple punches, help each other off the ground, say,
done, right?
Yep. Hug it out. I'm done. And
okay.
And then they wind up being best friends. Like,
yeah.
But we're so afraid to do anything like that anymore.
Yeah.
It's not politically correct. Like.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's how it has been done. Yeah, for all of human history, it's always come down to physical combat for the most part. Like, and I'm not saying that's the best solution, but
no, I mean,
is it better than the one we're looking at now? Where just because you look at me wrong, I could sue you or have you arrested and say you sexually harassed me with your eyes. Like, I mean, that's literally the kind of crap we're getting into.
No, and that's and it's such a weird situation, because I really do feel like there are people that I've had on this show that I know, or on this podcast that I know, that if we were having the same conversation, they would say, yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous. But at the same time, you get certain, and again, I really believe that not the people that I've had here, but you get certain people that are in the same, what do you want to call it?
On the same
level,
yeah.
on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
They are, and they would immediately attack, and I don't like that. It's like, no, let's stop, gather facts, do it, and figure out exactly what's going on. And that, to me, is one of the most terrifying things. I mean, you're right. Should we go out, go to fisticuffs, and come back and be okay? No, we probably should be intelligent enough. We've been a human race for a few 100,000 years. Let's just figure this out with our minds. No, it's not always going to work out that way. However,
are we losing the balance?
And that,
minds versus physicality.
Well, and I wonder if we're pushing the boundary of that too far too fast. Because I think about, and I try not to bring up my wife too much on the podcast, and I won't say her name or anything because she has her professional life. I do this, and that is what it is. But one of the conversations we used to have when we used to make a joke about it was like, do you want to talk about your feelings? It's like, no, I don't want to talk about my feelings. No, we're going to either deal with this or we're going to deal with this. And it was never anything physical. It was just a joke between the two of us. Like, want to talk about your feelings? And now I feel like if we said that in public, there might be somebody that walked up to us and was like, oh, is it bad to talk about your feelings? Like, no. But it's a fucking joke. That's what it is. And that's the most terrifying thing to me is just like, yes, it is good to talk about your feelings, especially if you're dealing with other issues. But you're also allowed to just kind of need a physical outlet. And for some people, it might be working out. For some people, it might be MMA. For some people, it might just be running 30 miles and then running right back and being fine. But you're allowed to have a physical outlet for anger, for stress, for depression. You're allowed to do that.
Well,
and if you need to go further, and I apologize for interrupting you,
you're good.
but if you're also somebody that needs something else, somebody to talk to, potentially you need to take something to just level you out, also do that. But don't yell at somebody if their goal is like, I just need to go into MMA to kind of resolve my anger issues for a few minutes.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's got to find their own creative outlet.
Exactly.
I'm a big believer
in that.
That's
a great way of putting it.
I mean, it's and that's how it should be.
Yeah.
But I'm saying I feel like we're to a point where it's not acceptable. Like, I mean, if I walked up to you right now and said, F you, F your family, F your wife.
You're like, do you want to sit there and talk about it?
You should hit me in the jaw.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you should do.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about our feelings.
Yeah, like at that point, we're past talking about feelings.
Yeah.
But I feel like even, I feel like we should have that balance. Like, we can hug it out afterwards and say, hey, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I was wrong.
Right.
But, at the point we've got to make it all about feelings.
Well, it's probably not going to work out. There's nothing that gets resolved in certain situations. In some situations.
And that was one thing I loved about my time in North Dakota is like there was none of this crap. Like, if you had an issue with someone, you stepped off the right of way, you throw punches, you help the other guy up, you get back to work.
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of a cool thing to witness, really. I mean, no one got hurt bad. You might have a black eye the next day, but hey, you shot your mouth off to the wrong dude.
Right.
Like,
well, and what an interesting situation to have it resolved independently as opposed to like having
that's the thing. No one calls the cops. I mean, they literally help him back up off the ground. You done? Let's get back to work.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, it's.
I'm not saying it's the best solution by any means.
No, of course.
But it was crazy to see it in action.
Yeah.
Like,
but then it was done, and I mean, I think that's
It was done.
Yeah, it's not like somebody like.
It's not like we had to comment 276 times on it on Facebook. It was done.
I think you had one post, and I can't remember when it was, but I think you had one post go to like 300 plus comments.
I've had several probably.
Yeah.
Every now and then I'm like that little kid where they're like, don't stir the pot. And I'm your friend that just grabs a big wooden spoon and stirs it.
It's like, what if I put this boiling water back into the? Oh yeah, now I have to keep
Yeah.
stirring it again. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but I think that's good. I think we need to. I mean, Alex, you've always been an incredibly intelligent guy. Like, so to me, it's important to engage mentally like that. Like,
Yeah.
we don't do that anymore. We engage with emotion instead of intellect.
Right.
I mean, that's why I was so passionate about debate. It's all about intellect. And,
Yeah, you debated.
nowadays everything's just about feelings.
Yeah. Well, you did debate.
Oh yeah.
The Republican side of George Bush winning a second time.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I think we beat old Bryden McNeely in that.
Bryden
when they put it to a class vote.
Who was the other guy?
What the result was. It was
Bryden and God,
I can't remember who his partner was. I know I had John. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was you and Bryden. I mean, it was basically the two.
And we were debate partners at the time, but just going against each other.
Yeah, I should have you and Bryden on the podcast, and I'll just sit here and shut the fuck up.
That would be awesome. But you know what? The one thing I'll say about Bryden, like, as much as we disagreed politically, like, this is a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
We disagreed politically very much. Like, we were, I'd like to think, pretty successful in our debate career in high school.
Yeah.
But you know what? When it came to arguing on whatever side of any issue, we were on the same page. Like, we got the job done.
Yeah.
And we would disagree personally afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? We came together, got the job done. Like, I think I wish more people could do that.
Yeah. Well, and I think just appreciating the other side. I mean, maybe not appreciating the other side, because obviously if you disagree with something vehemently, you're not going to appreciate it in the same way. But if you appreciate the person,
you can respect their difference and point of view.
Yeah.
And I've always been a big believer in that. I'm like, you know what? You don't have to agree with me. I will respect your point of view. I'll try to lay out a cohesive argument of why I think you're wrong.
Yeah.
But what I always respected was if you lay one out right back.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays we don't see that anymore. It's just, you hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not an argument. I gave you 6 different points of why this is logically incorrect.
Yeah.
And your response is, that hurts my feelings. That doesn't fly. Like, that's not a good way to conduct intellectual debate.
Right. Yeah. Well, like I was talking about Bill Maher earlier, and one of the most just it borders on and probably just is truly offensive. But when Ben Affleck was on Bill Maher and Sam Harris was on there as well, and Bill Maher brought Sam Harris on as like an expert, and Ben Affleck was sitting off to the side just steaming, but they were talking about Islam, and Bill Maher's opinion on that is very cut and clear, as is Sam Harris's, and without really bringing anything to the table. And again, you can have, like, go back and watch the clip. Just look up Bill Maher, Ben Affleck, Sam Harris. Make your opinion when you watch it. Like, I'm not going to give you it. But the most offensive thing in my mind was that Ben Affleck immediately came out and said, that's racist. It's like, and...
What was that? Was that on SNL?
No, it was on Real Time with Bill Maher. It was probably like 4 or 5 years ago.
I'm not a huge fan of that show, but I'll go look it up.
No, and it really is. Like, Bill Maher, Sam Harris, without question, they agree with each other on this one thing. Like, they're very much intellectually bound in that argument. But without bringing much to the table, Ben Affleck, I think he brought like 2 or 3 points, and he was like, well, are you an expert in this? And Sam Harris, who's a complete intellectual, was like, yeah, I've researched this. And so after he'd lost 2 or 3 times and retaliating, Ben Affleck is like, that's just racist. And it's like, and immediately the argument's over. Like, it really is. Well, like, because now we're not.
As soon as someone says that,
it's over.
Yeah,
because you can't debate anything.
Yeah.
No, it might be half the audience. It might be 10% of the audience, but part of the audience is now on one side and the other's on the other, and you're not going to be able to argue.
Isn't that a shame?
It's terrible.
We honestly we have to tie it into the job I took here, working in Kansas City with working building components for Navy aircraft carriers and destroyers. Like, I'm really excited about it. It's a really cool job.
That sounds fucking awesome.
But yeah,
we have to talk about that in a bit.
I wish I could tell you more, but that's about the extent of all I could say.
God damn it.
It's classified.
Are there aliens?
not on the destroyers and aircraft carriers. But no, we had the same issue the other day, and I'm not going to name names. There's a lot of good, hardworking people that I work with. And we have some laborers, grinders, that aren't a specialty skill like welders.
Yeah.
Some of them are certain races, some of them are other races. Like, it's just the way it works out to your skill level.
Yeah.
But you'd be amazed how many times a day I hear, well, how come there's not a black welder? And I'm like, well, work hard and get there, man.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Like, I want to help you out. And they're like, well, that's racist. Immediately, I'm just shut down. I have no input on it.
Just kind of walk away.
Yeah. Like, what are you supposed to say in that situation?
Well, and it could be anything. It'd be like, why is there no white welders? Like, okay, now I'm out. I'm sorry. I'm out.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm out of the argument.
It's just the race card is just becoming so overplayed.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and it was overplayed, back when people were campaigning against Obama even. And I'll agree with that. Like, as a conservative, I was like, this ain't about race.
No.
I was like, this is about intellectual differences and policy disagreements, and that's how it always should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Who do you agree with more?
Yeah, I mean,
that's who you vote for.
It should never be about race. And unfortunately, we've gotten ourselves to a point where that's all people have to say now is bring that card up or the "you offended me" card. And then,
the "you offended me" card is aggravating.
Well, I mean,
I'm offended. Oh God, have you ever seen the Australian comics? I really wish I remember the guy's name. The Australian comic that talks about being offended.
It sounds vaguely familiar.
I'm gonna have to look him up.
Yeah, you're gonna have
if we take a break, I'll look it up and we'll show the bit.
I could use a smoke.
All right, let's do that. All right, we're gonna take a break. Give me 1 second. All right, we're back. Woohoo! All right, so we were talking a second ago, and we hit on this a little bit earlier, but I think we actually started out with this, but like Williston itself to me is one of the craziest stories because I was watching a documentary on it, and I can't remember if it was a pretty big documentary, like Showtime, HBO, one of those things. But this was a place that was one stoplight, and that was it. And then all of a sudden,
one stoplight is still there. There's just about 17 more at it.
Yeah. Well, and to me, that's the craziest thing. It's like, so there's that stoplight, but I mean, it was that town, and you were just telling me the price for your condo was $1,700.
Yeah, $1,700 a month is what I'm still paying right now, and I've been in Wyoming for the past 6 months. For about 6 months, and then here for the past 4 months.
Yeah.
But it's just these property management companies that come in, you can't contain them, you can't sue them, you can't try to get out of the lease.
Yeah.
You're better off just paying.
Yeah.
And fortunately enough, most of us made enough money to be able to say, okay, I'm just gonna have to chunk out of that, which it sucks. It sucks.
Yeah.
You don't have that normal luxury of saying, hey, I had to relocate.
Right.
But even before then, Alex, it was I remember back when I first hired on with Schlumberger, like I told you, back in 2013. They provided our housing, and it was a nice 2-bedroom apartment. You had to split it with a coworker.
Yeah.
We each had our own bedrooms, own bathrooms, decent apartment. But they were paying $3,600 to $4,200 per month
for an apartment.
For an apartment.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the going norm.
Yeah, that's like double Kansas City.
But you know what? It was more efficient than the $350 to $400 per night, what you would pay just to have a hotel room for the night at the Motel 6. Yeah.
Well, the thing that I was watching that we talked about, I was like, I thought it was just you got a mobile home for $3,000 a month, but you were saying that it was like, no, it's not a mobile home for $3,000. It's the place for $2,000, and you have to bring up your own place.
Yeah, that's a huge thing, and I mean, even that still goes on to this day. Like Watford City, North Dakota, Williston, North Dakota, Stanley, North Dakota. You get onto either one of those places right now on this very day, you're still looking at $800 to $1,200 per month lot rent just to have your camper parked there, which it seems unreasonable in our parts, and to be honest, I think it is unreasonable. It's just people charging what they can.
Yeah, and people will pay it.
And people will pay it.
Yeah,
because they're making enough money, they're gonna pay it to continue making that money.
And so, how far is home? If you're in Williston, how far is home from like where you have to go?
996.7 miles.
So where do you stay when you're not in Williston?
Back in the day, I used to come home and see my mom.
Yeah.
Come home for a home-cooked meal. And,
No, I didn't mean to bring up that, and 1,000 miles is a hell of a way to be from home. I mean, like, when you're making your trek, because you're an inspector.
Oh.
Like, when you're going through, like, is it...
You always go home. You always
okay.
go home.
Gotcha.
I might drive 3 hours one way.
Gotcha. Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon up there to work a 20-hour day, get 4 hours of sleep, and get your ass up and go back to work the next day. The way it works in inspection, you get paid a day rate. Usually, so I worked for one particular client. I got paid $1,050 a day.
Yeah.
Regardless of what I worked. If I didn't work, I still got paid. If I worked 4 hours, I still got paid $1,050. If I worked 16 hours, I still got paid $1,050. And I was obviously able to make deductions on mileage and other things, but yeah, it's there's a lot of that when it comes to the inspection side that is based on a day rate.
Yeah.
And I mean, my most current job in Wyoming, you're clearing after taxes, $5,300 a week.
Jesus.
which is the kind of stuff you dream about.
Yeah.
But the downside is it's short-lived. It's very political.
Yeah.
So you only last as long as you're towing the company line.
Yeah.
Which sometimes isn't always the right thing, like we talked about. Sometimes,
Yeah.
even in oil and gas, like something I take pride in. I've had people ask me, Kyle, we need you to overlook this and just sign off on it saying it's good.
Wow.
Me personally, I won't do it because that's people's lives at stake. That's the environment at stake.
Yeah, well, like you were talking about, it's like if you mess something up 8,000 feet below and that gas rushes up.
People are going to die.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that.
I won't ever do that again.
Yeah. To me, that's the strangest thing about working in the particular field that you're in is, one, maybe let's go a step before that. Where they find oil, it's in some of the most remote places in the world. I mean, you guys are, for the most part, I assume it's kind of like deep sea fishing. Like you're probably 97, 98% male, but you're way out in the fucking middle of nowhere.
Well, I mean, yes and no. As far as technologies come, they actually do what they call seismic testing, and they'll literally, you'll see choppers just flying around, and they drop this giant box, Alex. It's about, if I had to take a rough guess, probably 12 foot by 5 foot wide. 12 foot long, 5 foot wide. They'll drop this down. It's rigged up with all these computer sensors, and they'll send a seismic pulse down into the earth, and they can take a reading and calculate and compute all of that, and they can figure out with North Dakota, you're working with what they call shale, the shale oil fields.
Yeah.
It's different than Texas. It's different than Canada, where you're dealing with sand oil.
Right.
Shale fractures easily. Just like the shale we find down on the riverbanks of the Missouri.
Thin rock.
It's a thin rock.
Yeah.
It's a thin rock that breaks easily. And that's what this is in North Dakota. It's just a lot deeper. But once you break that rock, it allows the oil to flow freely. And it's really where the pioneering came in, mostly in North Dakota, with hydraulic fracturing or fracking, as it's called politically. And a lot of people are against it. And
because it causes earthquakes.
Well,
supposedly.
How many earthquakes have we had in North Dakota? No.
Well, in Oklahoma, more now.
I know. But then, I'm not a seismologist, but even I know there are no tectonic plates running along that particular plane. But it is something we need to be careful about, that we need to be cautious about. But we've got it dialed in. And actually, North Dakota, I was just reading an article the other day, we're looking at refracturing previously what they call busted wells. Because once you fracture these wells out through the shale, and it's a really cool process. We have a bunch of specialty tools that will shoot down there, and we literally just stick dynamite down a hole, blow it wide open within a certain radius. It allows the oil to flow up and through, and do our containment apparatus, and then we contain the oil. We capture it, we ship it, we separate the gas, we separate all the toxic elements, we bring it to the consumers.
Yeah. And that doesn't cause any seismic issue? Because that's the thing that I've seen with Oklahoma is I Like had scientists down there, and they were like,
Oklahoma doesn't really frack. They're still doing straight drilling.
I thought they were like putting like pressurized steam in there and just blowing shit up below.
I mean, I haven't done much work in Oklahoma, so I guess I can't speak for them. There's so many different techniques to drilling. Like it's a lot more complicated than people think. It's not like you're drilling a hole just straight into the ground.
Yeah.
Like
well, and again, I'm not a fucking expert. It's just like I see.
And neither am I. Like it's. I mean, you'll drill down to a certain length, and then your oil fields, your oil plains operate at a level like this. The oil's sitting down there. It's all the burned up dinosaurs that got killed by the comet.
Yeah.
And so what we shoot for is to go down here and tap into that oil.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to just drill straight through it.
Right. You want to go horizontal.
Tap into it.
Yeah.
And we've developed measures and tools and methods to do that.
Gotcha.
And it's relatively safe and efficient and necessary. I'd say. I mean, you look around at the growing demand for everything, and that's, the price of gas has fallen recently.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, do you remember that $4 a gallon gas?
Oh yeah, I was living in Sedalia.
Even around here, which was unheard of in Missouri.
Yeah.
And you know what that was? I hate to say it. It was there was a certain president in control that was restricting our ability to produce for our own power.
Yeah, well, now we become a net exporter, which is a very weird thing.
And that has never before happened, and that's one thing I will give Trump credit for. Like, it's something that's needed to happen. Why are we buying oil from countries that support terrorism?
Well,
like, if you're all for women's rights and gays' rights, why are we buying oil from Iran, who executes gays and executes women for looking at a man? Like,
well, and I won't.
Where is the moral authority there?
I definitely won't disagree with that part, but I think the weirdest part for me is the word in this particular circumstance. Just because when you look at the geopolitical situation, I always worry about the word net when we talk about that. We're a net exporter, because to me what that sounds like is, and maybe I'm wrong, but to me what it sounds like is we are shipping oil, storing oil in a way that is, and again, we can, and not just you and me, but like me and anybody else, or you and anybody else, or the whole world. I'm not smart enough to come up with this, but when I hear the word we are a net exporter, what I hear is we are shipping oil away when it is economically positive and bringing in oil when it is economically positive. And again, that's not a negative. I just want to finish that statement. Yeah. It's not a negative, but I always worry when I hear somebody say this is a net gain. I really if we were talking about tax policy, I'd worry about that.
And here, let me clarify that, because what they're getting at with that net gain, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. What we are outsourcing is what they call LPG, liquefied petroleum gas.
Okay.
It's a higher end technology that a lot of other countries, they don't possess the capabilities to receive it or send it. We do with some of our ships, cruisers, tankers. We do. This is where the whole issue with Iran comes into play, and controlling the Strait of Hormuz.
Okay, this is way beyond my brain, so keep going. But I'm not gonna challenge you. I'm just saying, like, this is where it goes beyond me.
No, I mean, LPG is a highly concentrated, efficient form of gas.
Would it be, just out of curiosity, would this be like something like you normally pump 87 octane in, and this is 340?
No. LPG
Sorry.
is
I'm
LPG.
an idiot.
It can be no. You're not at all. You're not at all. Because I mean, there's things about it I don't even understand. I just know it's one of our highest valued commodities right now is
Gotcha.
LPG.
Okay.
And one of the unique things that Trump has focused on, and I'll give him credit, is exporting this LPG, because other countries don't possess the capability to drill for it, contain it, or utilize it.
Gotcha.
So if the United States can deliver it to them, and it'd be even better if we could use that net gain that they talk about to pay down our national deficit, but we won't even get started on that.
We'd have to stop spending money. Wouldn't that be crazy?
What a concept. But no, it is something unique that the United States brings to the table, and it's something that other countries they want our technology, and it's a reason we guard our technology.
And so what is the point of it then? I mean, is that something you said that you don't know? Because that's where I'm confused.
The upper end, it's a highly pressurized gas. that we can also use the condensate. We can take that condensate and reduce it back down to very pure gas.
Okay.
So you're basically, you're going from a gas form to a liquid form, and then potentially back to a gas form. You can almost do whatever you want with it.
Gotcha.
From my limited understanding, I'm not an expert on it, but
Right.
that's the value in it, from what I understand.
So that's
Because think about being able to go from liquid to gas, back to liquid if you need to, all just through a couple simple mechanisms.
yeah.
It's valuable for numerous reasons.
And so again, like I am not an expert in this whatsoever, but so where does this come from?
LPGs comes out of the oil wells. It comes out of
is this
out of everything.
I guess is the LPG the refining process or
yes, yeah,
okay.
it's part of the refining process. It's part of H2S, which has killed so many oil field workers.
Gotcha.
That's the toxic gas.
Oh, good.
If you ever get hyped up on, well, it's normally contained.
Gotcha.
And once you remove the H2S, it's relatively safe. Still explosive, but
yeah. What's the?
It's the same semi trucks you see driving down the road saying LPG on board. That's what it is.
It's one of those things that I don't think you see
It's
until you see it.
It's the gas tankers that.
Yeah.
You probably pass them every day in traffic. You just don't realize it.
Right.
And those are people driving cross country. The backbone of America. Transporting essential stuff.
Well, yeah, and speaking
like I said,
of
I agree with you. Like, I'm all down for solar and stuff. Like, that'd be great. Do you think that gets us through a bad winter? What happens if our solar panels get covered up?
Well, and again, like I said, like
what happens if the sun don't shine? You're gonna kick on your electric heater, or you're gonna,
I apologize. I'm the one messing this shit up. My arm is going crazy. I apologize for that. That was not intentional. No, so my whole thing about getting through the winter, I totally agree. And again, this is one of those things where I talk about efficiency and with like why we can't kill things now is because like, yeah, if you like we're going into winter right now. If you just were like, no, fuck natural gas, we'd be screwed.
Oh, yeah,
and people
absolutely.
would die, and there's no question about it. I do think that eventually we'll figure these things out.
Yeah.
But right now, absolutely not.
We're just not there yet.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to realize is let's be realistic about it.
Yeah.
And,
100%. Well, and like what you were just talking about with this, what, LPG. I had no idea that this shit even existed.
Yeah.
You're talking to, like I said,
just look up how much we're sending across the ocean, and it should be netting us profits, but our trade imbalances are so off it won't. But
and again, trade imbalances are fine as long as like I think people and we're getting off on the political track again.
Yeah,
but when we talk about trade imbalances are completely fine because if we're buying shit but we can pay for it, that's fine. That's okay. It's when our own government is paying way more than or is spending way more than they should that you can't equate to trade imbalances. Because our trade situation is complicated.
Oh yeah, it always is.
Yeah, and it always will be, and you can try to fight it, but that's just too geopolitical. I don't want to fucking get into that right now. So let's go back to this shit. The weirdest, again, I still think the most complicated thing right now to me is that we are a net exporter of quote unquote oil
and gas.
And it doesn't seem like it because people don't understand what that means. Like I don't even think people don't understand what that means. I think a lot of people understand that net exporting means that we are on the plus side of this one thing. But they still see us fracking and they see bad things.
Well, it's what they think are bad things. Like these are things that are either happening in our country or happening in another country under subpar human labor. Like,
well, and I think that's a great argument.
Like,
I think that's a really good argument.
If you want to talk about bad things, like
if we're a net exporter, if we decide that we're not going to be an and again, I apologize for interrupting
you. You're fine.
But if we decide that we're not a net exporter, but other countries are allowed to export more than us, that means that even more lives are in danger because even though we've had issues in this country, far better than most.
Well, and it's just, do all of our moral objections extend to other countries, or just to the United States?
Good point. Very good point.
Like,
yeah, no, 100%.
Because if you're not cool with it, quit buying those solar panels from China that a child made for 5 cents a day.
Yeah, or your iPad or iPhone or anything.
Exactly. Like we could make objections.
Yeah, there are suicide nets in Chinese companies that are creating our iPads.
And so I think you and I agree. We should just come more across on the point that hey, we can reach an attainable goal, a reasonable level.
Yeah.
Without having to bring feelings, everything else, every other emotional objection into it.
Well, and just to automatically hate each other because of it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like we don't have to.
There's no reason to hate.
Yeah.
If I could say one thing on your entire podcast tonight, it would literally be like, you know what? I might be a conservative guy, but I love every single one of you. I got friends that are gay. I got friends that are lesbian. I got friends that are bisexual. I got friends that are transsexual. I love every single one of them. Mm-hmm. And I would if you were a complete stranger, because that's how I was raised, and that's who I want to be. Yeah. I'll love you as a person.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. Yeah. I'm not buying into this crap that, just because Trump said something, it automatically means I agree with it.
Right.
It doesn't. Right. And that's what we need to get away from. Mm-hmm. People are allowed to have differing opinions.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think just listening to each other would be a positive, because even if you agree with, and this is just such an unfortunate thing, that if you agree with something that Trump says, the worst part about let me back up for a second. The worst part about the far right now, is that if Trump says something, you're automatically rah. That's not good.
That's not true.
If you're on the left, the worst thing you can do is say that he is automatically wrong, which is also bad. Or that you call somebody names because of something, because they agree with a certain point that he has. I mean, I'm trying to think, who's the presidential candidate that I disagree with the most on the left? If Bernie Sanders said solar panels are cool, there are people on the right that would attack him for being a communist.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, if Trump said, and I do like the memes, I do have to give the people who create memes about Trump a lot of credit, because they are fucking great.
They're good.
But the ones where Trump is like, I love puppies. Trump hates kittens. Yeah.
Those are my favorite.
But I mean, it's true on both sides, and I think
it's like Trump said, "Good morning, America." Trump hates night.
Exactly. Well, I watched. He was only on it for an hour and 15 minutes, but Bernie Sanders went on Joe Rogan's podcast, and I love Joe Rogan's podcast.
He's good.
But he had Bernie Sanders on his podcast. Joe Rogan is progressive like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Even though people don't want to see him that way, he is liberal. But
he makes some good points. Yeah. He's a logical guy. I'll give him that.
100%. And he had Bernie Sanders on his podcast. And guess what? I disagreed with probably 65 to 70% of what Bernie Sanders said. But you know what? He was calm. He was intelligent. He presented good arguments. Again, I disagreed with several of his points. But he was given over an hour to just talk about what he thought.
Yep.
And guess what? He didn't come off as crazy Bernie.
We need more of that open dialogue, but you can't get that on the media nowadays. Like Fox News is blatantly conservative.
Yep.
Even as a conservative, I know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I regularly.
They went after
I'll flip
Shep.
to CNN and MSNBC just to get the opposite point of view.
Yeah, they went after Shep.
It shouldn't be that way.
They went after Shep.
I know, and and see, stuff like that is just that's how you know we're going wrong.
Yeah.
Even guys like us can sit down and say, look, can't we just get the truth out of the matter? And unfortunately, that's. I can't remember who quoted it, but sometimes I'm not even going to attempt to quote it because I'm going to mess the quote all up.
To paraphrase.
No, I don't even want to paraphrase. I'm trying to recall exactly what it was. But either way, truth sometimes, evades us, and we got to remind ourselves to get back to it.
Yeah.
It's something I've always been a big fan of the founding fathers. I enjoy the story.
Mm-hmm.
I realize it was a different time.
Of course.
But I think a lot of the principles still hold true.
100%.
And,
No, 100%. I mean, even
I feel like that's something maybe we're losing track of is the principles that
Right.
America was founded upon. You know, not so much. I'm a huge fan of the Constitution, and I'm a big believer that if we're going to change it, you know, it needs to come to a national vote.
Yeah.
But I realize times have changed. Maybe we need to change some of the words, but the basic principles need to remain the same. You know,
Yeah.
the right to liberty, the right to pursue happiness, the right to bear arms.
Yeah.
To me, those are three things that most other countries don't have. Like I said, look at China. Look at all these other countries around the world. Like,
Yeah. Freedom of speech, freedom to press, freedom to, yeah.
Well, and unfortunately, the press has messed everything up.
Well, and
not you. You're doing your part to try to just put a good message out.
Well, no, and I think like that was one of the things that you said a couple of minutes ago that I was gonna bring up, but you were bringing up such good points. I was like, yeah, we're just gonna keep going with this. Is like that's one of the something like this. That's a podcast that is just me interviewing people that I appreciate and that I want to hear from. You can't do this other places.
Exactly.
I mean, you can't at all. Like, and,
I know. And isn't that?
And I'm really excited to see how the FCC is going to fuck this shit up. But I mean, like, you think about that, like, you know, and again, I go back to him because I really do appreciate what he's done for this realm. But like, Joe Rogan's had like 1,400 podcasts with everyone, with people he likes, with people he doesn't like.
And that's how it should be.
Yeah, but it's just been a conversation. I mean, that he's 100% the inspiration that I did this, and there are other podcasts that have done the exact same thing. I mean, Dax Shepard has a really good one called Armchair Expert. He brings on people, he questions things, he asks things. I think he's a little bit more PC than Joe Rogan will ever even understand how to be, but he brings on people that he has never met, that he just wants to have a conversation with. To me, this is the best medium that you can possibly have, is two people having a conversation, or, you know, even up to four people, because I think once you get past that, you can't understand what everybody's saying. But it's like one person, or one person and a couple of people just having an honest conversation, nothing held back, and you see what happens. And if you don't like it, guess what? You never have to listen to me again. Like, when somebody tunes into 10 Tabs Open, they never have to ever research Alex Howell, Alexander Howell, or 10 Tabs Open again. But if they do like it, or they enjoy the different conversation than they've had, cool. Listen to every episode. I don't care. It's great.
Well, and I mean, Alex, honestly, as a guy who's known you since elementary school, the way you approach this entire, interview dialogue we've had today.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been done any better, man.
I appreciate it.
We haven't hung out in years, and it's been great catching up with you.
Since 18, man.
It's been great, but
thank you.
You know, are we not? You know, we're still similar in some ways, but we've changed in some ways.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that speaks to your integrity and your show's integrity. You know, you literally invited me over here to your recording studio and just said, "Hey, Kyle, come down here, tell the truth, tell me what you want to say." Like,
yeah.
You didn't coach me on anything. You said, sit down, say what you want to say. And, dude, I think that's impressive. I think that takes a lot of guts on your part.
I appreciate it.
You had no clue what I was going to come in here and say. And you're just like, just go with it.
No.
And I think,
thank you for that.
I think that just says a lot about your integrity as a person. And
no, thank you, man.
It doesn't surprise me because I've known you for a while, and I know you're a stand-up dude.
No, thank you, man.
To all the other listeners out there, you're great. Man.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Don't cry.
No,
He's crying.
That actually brought
He's crying a little bit.
Fuck off.
Oh, don't cry, Alex.
That brought it was a little tear. It was a little tear. No, I appreciate that, man. It's it's one of those things. Like, again, when I started this, like, I've only had 19 episodes. It's not like I've had like thousands of years behind this, but it's just like one of those things that I see things out there, you know, out in the media or any other situation where you look at it and you're just like, oh, well, fuck that guy. It's like, no. I mean, I literally ran for Congress as a libertarian because I was just pissed off that there wasn't a third party that made any sense whatsoever. Like, so I was just I answered. I didn't do a lot of interviews, which I probably should. I did interviews, but I didn't do a lot of I didn't reach out to the public a lot, but I answered everything online. I was on the radio. I answered everything that I possibly could about my opinion because I truly believe, like, if you're going to vote for me, you need to know my opinion.
No, I was rooting for you even from up in North Dakota.
I appreciate that.
I really was.
No, I appreciate that.
I remember when I saw that, I was like, holy shit. I was like,
that motherfucker's doing something.
I was like, go Alex.
Yeah, I won the primary and got my ass curb stomped in the election.
We'll get him next time.
Yeah, but I mean, the whole thing was just like I'm not gonna. I feel like, and maybe this is kind of a bullshit argument, but it's like now I feel like I can bitch about shit. Like I can actually say like, hey, I ran for it, I tried my ass off, and I did what I did, but had a few thousand votes, and that was a positive thing. But the biggest thing is like in all of this, I really wish people could come together and see that we're not that much different. I mean, you were talking about the guys in the oil field. They don't see anything against solar. They just don't like the idea that everybody's against them.
Yeah.
That to me is that should be the story. Like, yeah, because if you went to your job tomorrow and you were in the pharmaceutical industry and they hated you because you were there and they were protesting you and saying how terrible you were and you deserved to die, you probably wouldn't like that either.
Yeah.
But these guys are, trying to do the right thing and trying to pay, trying to help their family as you would.
I mean, it's some of the most hardworking men and women you'll ever meet in the country. And
yeah.
I mean, dude, I'll put $1,000 down right now that you won't meet a harder working person physically. I mean, everybody works hard in their own way.
Right.
But if you ever take us up on the opportunity to go up there and meet some of my other buddies, you're gonna find like it's a lot of people don't realize that people are so used to a 9 to 5. They don't realize what it's like to work 36 hours straight because the job had to get done.
Well, and just look up a YouTube video about what these guys do. I mean, you move your hand wrong, you lose your hand.
Yeah, and it's not just us. That goes across so many different industries. It's just hard work should be valued, and sometimes we need these kind of things.
Yeah.
Because they're not things we're at a point to get rid of.
Agreed, and I think that's the best statement. It's like we're just not there yet.
Yeah, and I hope we do get there. Trust me, I'd love to have a solar-powered car that I don't have to spend a bunch of money at the gas tank. But we're just not there yet.
Right.
Yeah. I see all my friends talking about it, but I don't see a bunch of them driving Teslas.
Right.
Like,
no, exactly.
And that's a reality because Teslas are so overpriced.
Yeah.
And that's supply and demand. Capitalism.
Exactly. Yeah. And Elon is probably the smartest motherfucker in the U.S., and he still can't figure it out because it doesn't make sense right now.
It's just not there.
It will eventually.
I hope it will, and I think it will.
Yeah.
I truly will, because, I mean, they're right to a certain degree. We can't rely on fossil fuels forever. I mean, theoretically, we've got probably 10, 15,000 years, which is longer than we're going to make it. But, in theory, we need to find something renewable.
And if you bring a solar roof down to nothing and all of a sudden everybody can live on that, you're fine.
If that solar roof can create enough output.
Right, exactly.
They can't.
Yeah, 100%.
That's, there's still technology gaps, and that's the stuff we got to work towards. And, that's.
I think the entirety of the idea is if we make the right policy decisions, we understand that the guys and gals that are up there working their asses off are humans and they shouldn't be put down. If you understand that these are people that are just working their asses off and they're doing the right thing for right now, we're in a positive position to say we don't want those people in the oil fields taking their lives into their own hand, or taking their lives not even into their own hands, into a very interesting situation.
Well,
if we can,
I don't mean to interrupt. But
no, please do.
I guess I did in this particular situation.
No, you deserve to. I was trying to go.
I think what you'd find is those guys in oil and gas will adapt and be more successful.
Yeah, because they're hard workers.
Well, and they're smart.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just, it's not a bunch of dummies out there. There's some smart guys out there.
Yeah. Of course.
It takes a lot of balls to get down into a hole and strike an arc on a pipe that has live gas in it.
I don't even know what that means, and I'm terrified.
You're trusting your people to tell you that line's purged, because if it's not, you're dead. Like, so.
What does a line purged mean?
They'll isolate lines often, especially when they have to do a repair on a pipeline.
Okay.
So it's an active line that all of a sudden we have a leak for some reason, and this does happen. If the earth shifts, something goes wrong. It could have been a bad weld.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden we have a leak. We go in and fix it. We have ways of approaching these things. What they'll often do is they'll isolate a line by air or by purge, nitrogen. Force all the air out of there, so that way the welder can come in, cut the defective portion of the pipe, weld in a new good section of pipe. But in order to do all that, we need all that gas and explosive stuff out of the line.
Right.
And that's why they'll isolate and purge
Gotcha.
to force all the explosive gas away.
Gotcha.
But you know what? You're counting on the wind not blowing too hard one way.
Yeah, it's not that there's zero
I've
risk.
sat there and watched guys do it. I've sat there and watched welders say their prayers before they get down in the ditch to strike up on an arc. So I take it a little personally when someone tells me that they're just up there for money, they're just up there for this. Like, they take pride in their work.
Yeah.
And it's a skilled trade that
not
many
people
people
are
possess.
up there for money.
Not many people possess anymore.
Yeah.
We need more welders. We need more pipe fitters. We need more people that are willing to get their hands dirty.
Yeah.
It's just that's such a taboo thing now.
No, and I agree that it's looked at as a taboo thing, but I mean, when you talk about people getting their hands dirty, I mean, you look at the amount of people that you need right now in skilled professions that do get their hands dirty. I mean, we're not talking about just welders in Williston. We're talking about HVAC professionals, electricians, welders here just working on tall-ass buildings.
My place is hiring.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a need for that skilled labor everywhere, and maybe that's part of the bigger picture. We've preached for so long, and that was one thing I did want to touch on, but maybe we'll get to it another time. Like, I spent 4 years in college, and honestly, I regret it.
No.
I wish I would have just went right into the trade that I'm in, because I make more money than, most of my buddies that went to college for 4 years.
Yeah.
And, I don't mean that to sound arrogant,
no,
but it's like I did that.
No, I'm not going to say the amount, but I mean, you said it earlier.
Yeah,
you made more money than I have in a year ever.
Well, and I didn't even need the college. And it's like, we shouldn't be afraid of that. We should embrace that, and hey, if that's something you're passionate about, go for it.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I would have had that kind of wisdom back then.
Yeah, or just know that, like, you could do this for several years, set yourself up really well, and if you want to go to college, you can pay for it yourself now. You want to get a law degree?
Don't even get us started on the college loans and stuff.
Yeah.
It's such a scam. It sets people up for failure.
Yeah, but, I mean,
we'll have to save that for the next show. But if I could give one more shout out, Alex, seriously, you've been amazing, man. I haven't seen this guy in 15 years. I don't know if he'll use this for an outro.
Oh, I totally will.
But he's a stand-up dude, and Alex, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Kyle, thank you so much, and you're always welcome back. And we're going to do this soon because I know what you dropped off earlier, and we're just going to have to do another one for that. Thanks.
Thank you.